We went from this to that. However, we also went from that to this. Despite the goofy vibes of this chapter, is there anything even worth discussing? Of course there is, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this video. There are many different types of Houseki no Kuni fans at the moment. Some are enjoying every moment of the series despite the longer breaks. Others dread these breaks because they tend to forget the finer details. And there are those that have either dropped or paused the series because their expectations at the end of chapter 95 were not met upon return. Regardless, we are all suffering, so we might as well make the most of the time we have been given, you know? It's all a matter of perspective. Just like how Foss appeared super close to the rocks at the end of chapter 101, when in reality they were quite far away. Just like how the box, which seemed so terrifying and threatening, had a extremely chill vibe in this chapter. Just like the turn from vertical to horizontal between Foss and the box. My gut reaction to this chapter was that Ichikawa kind of played us. It felt misleading with how imposing chapter 101 came off as. But we've gone through this type of thing before, where we see different aspects or sides to the characters. Thinking back, for example, Kongo presenting themselves differently when Foss started questioning them, and Euclid starting to question Foss when they came back from the moon. This change in perspective sheds more light on the characters and affects how we look at them, and it's mainly because of how Foss comes across as in other people's eyes. When Foss became super inquisitive, they didn't trust Kongo, so Kongo got a lot of deep shading and threatening nature almost. And when Foss ends up feeling the same way, Euclid depicts them, or when we see Foss at the end of chapter 59 with that dark shading. In this case, it wasn't really dark shading at the end of 101, but the box definitely gave off such a strong horror feel. And it's the most drastic change we've probably seen so far, but just a few chapters earlier in chapter 97, we got something very similar with the Doctor. We learned tangential information about how other characters felt about her, but when we saw her in the flesh, she behaved very differently from how the other characters portrayed her. She had a fiery desire or drive that gave weight to each of her words in a very human way. She seemed resentful, filled with regret, and placed burdens on future generations. The box is pretty similar in that kind of way. We learn tangential information about its history, and through Barbata, the scientist, there is some ambiguity as to whether the ice flows and the box are the same thing, as they behave extremely differently and have different origins, and kind of like the tone doesn't really match how the ice flows do it. Maybe we'll get more clarity when the official translation for chapter 89 drops with volume 12 later this year, as hopefully it is later this year. The Nibblies already have fully translated it from their end, according to this podcast. Regarding translations, there are actually 3 different versions of the fan translation for chapter 102. This is probably the first chapter where variation is good, and I definitely accept it, because of the humor or nuance of how the box appears shifts depending on how someone translates its words, and the range is shown in the different fan translations. If you read all 3 versions, which one would you like? And we'll probably get a 4th version with the official one, but it'll probably take another year or so until we get volume 13, sadly. We also got this little mic test of the eye, or the box, working through different languages from English, French, German, and Italian, as Aiden pointed out in the comments for the chapter 102 live stream, which are all Romance languages partly based on Latin, until finally switching to Japanese to connect to the other characters. I wonder if the snails actually did speak in Latin, as their race Admirabilis comes from the Latin word mirabilis, mirabili, which roughly translates to amazing, wonderful, or remarkable. The English derivative of admirable fits the word pretty well. Since Latin is one of the bases for many of the Romance languages, is this the stretch that Ichikawa took for Foss to understand any and all languages when they got absorbed by ventriloquistus? Who knows? Our series is heavily rooted in Buddhism. The main link that I found was thanks to Eric Kunkel on the chapter 102 livestream. The seed that the box found was likely a lotus seed, which is associated with purity, spiritual awakening, and faithfulness. All of these apply to the events of chapter 98, which is what we see from the box's point of view. At that moment, Foss was pure, had finished their spiritual awakening, and purified humanity with their prayer, fulfilling their faithful job one way or another. The inclusion that seemed to have left the lotus seed might have just symbolized that, or because plants, especially the lotus seed, are held in high regard, it could be that resilience that they hold is due to an inclusion. These lotus seeds can emerge from murky waters completely clean, which is a state of mind of purity that is ideal ideal in Buddhism, and I guess in general. Being able to go through harsh environments and come out perfectly normal is a good mindset to have. Ichikawa obviously pokes holes in this idea by literally exposing that the inclusions are still inside of Foss, and also the box itself has a really childish demeanor, similar to it almost felt like Foss was talking to an older version of themselves. Just two children that wiped the face of humanity, as confirmed by the box itself that they did miscalculate on purpose. But even after all of that, the smell of their doctor, who I linked to the Sushi Cream Chips, lingers and holds attachment. This being that is not human, that could not be wiped away by a god, has a human desire for nostalgia, one that can't be erased by Foss, who happened to erase all of the rest of humanity, those evil beings. Is it okay for us to have these 108 desires as well then? These aren't the Sushi Cream Chips. This is the only thing I had. Oh, I desire to gather 10,000 sufferers to stand by Foss as they go about trying to destroy the last remaining piece of themselves at the end of the series. Will you join me by hitting the subscribe button? Additionally, during the 3-month break, I would like to reread the series again. In the meantime, check out this video that I have about the moon that will be released shortly during this month. Peace.